it was the Duke's presence that was the most striking. He was tall, a full head taller than most men. In contrast to his brightly clothed attendants, his outfit was largely gray and black brocade. It was as if he were in mourning. He had no exposed skin, with his hands covered by black leather gloves and his head covered by a thick black hood. No wonder he'd want to get out of the crowd, Peytra thought. He must be boiling in that. But what Peytra found most frightening was the mask he wore. It was that of a bear's face, with eyes overshadowed into two narrow slits. The mask itself was a faded, whitewashed, stylized wooden work, lending the Duke an otherworldly appearance. Peytra looked into those slits to try and catch a glimpse of the man hidden inside. She caught a momentary flash of sky blue. Seeing the man covered in such a way tugged at her chest in a mixture of opposing emotions. At first, she found the utter darkness and unnaturalness of his visage uncomfortable and frightening. Then she remembered her brother's explanation, that he'd been scarred and disfigured. The sympathy hit her in a thick push to her stomach, and she thought about how torn up he must have been to hide that way, to have his whole body covered to keep from the humiliation of scarred skin. She would punch that stupid smile off her brother's face for his remarks later.
"Your Grace,"
the attendant from before said,
"here is Otto Inkton-God. He is the proprietor of this shop."
Otto performed a low, extravagant bow.
"Your Grace, thank you so much for bestowing your presence on our humble little shop."
The Duke was silent for a moment before he spoke, seeming to take in the toy store with all its distracting displays. His voice was a rich, low tenor, but not as deep nor as frightening as Peytra had assumed it would be for such an imposing presence.
"No, thank you for the use of your shop. My page assured it would not be an imposition, but I am the one who remains humbly in your debt." "No, no, your Grace's presence here is a gift unto us, but we are glad of your favor."
Peytra hated this kind of prattling and occupied herself with rearranging the farm figures on the shelf as they went on. The Duke was seated at the small guest table, politely listening to Otto's continued flattery. Otto offered the Duke water and fruit, but apologized profusely for not being able to offer wine. The Duke politely turned the food down. She noticed a tall, thin guard keeping a steady eye on her. Not in a way that was lascivious, but a look of wary suspicion. She could feel the guard's eyes on her hands, perhaps waiting for her to pull out a dagger from some hidden place and lunge at his master. Peytra wondered if all royalty were this paranoid.
"Is that your wife?"
The Duke inquired about Peytra to Otto in the middle of the conversation. She realized he was referring to her, and she wanted to vomit.
"Your Grace, you flatter me to have such a young bride. But no, this is my business partner's daughter, Peytra. Come, Peytra."
He motioned her over.
"She is like a surrogate daughter to me. My wife is in the square with our son and daughter selling at the booth. So if it is possible, later I may introduce your Grace if you are amenable." "Business partner?" "Yes, your Grace. Her father is Peytra Sike, toy maker extraordinaire and creator of all the works you see before you."
Otto gestured to all the shelves, large sleeves billowing. Peytra knew that her contribution would be erased, but it still stung.
"He is such a fine artist. Please, your Grace, feel free to browse anything you wish."
The Duke merely tilted his masked chin in Peytra's direction. The guard who had been watching her walked over and held out his hand. In a quick second, she dared look at his eye to see a man behind the mask.